Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today we're on chapter 38 of Leviathan Wakes, the first book in the series, and we've got a Miller chapter today. It's quite a nice little one. It's a little four-part, kind of four-segmented boys. But it's fun, it's cute, and we always love a good bit of Miller getting a bit emosh. So obviously the last time we saw the gang, they were on Tycho Station. They're kind of dealing with the aftermath of what's been going on, so being shot at everywhere, Eros turning into zombies, etc, etc, etc. And they're kind of hanging out for a brief pause before the action begins again. Because we're getting just over 2/3 of the way through the book now, so we're kind of at that point where you pause for the big grand crescendo. So we've already done the zombies and stuff, and now we're ready for the next one, Electric Boogaloo. So we join Miller, and he's sat on the observation deck looking at the Nauvoo, which obviously is the big Mormon spaceship. And every time we see the Nauvoo, we're always told, very explicitly, that it's big. It's a big boy. And we're talking about out on Tycho Station, because it's where all the ships are made and stations are made. It's so wealthy. Miller says he'd lived in the belt his whole life, and he'd never been anywhere that was designed so carefully for the tasteful display of wealth and power. So it's just everything's big, everything's fancy. He's not used to that. Used to kind of a more cyberpunk, gritty place. He walks over, sees Naomi. She's sat eating some food on a phone, or kind of on a terminal, looking at the comms data from the ship they boarded, the stealth ship, the one that they blew up eventually. And they're trying to find the station where the weird shark man was kind of talking, basically where they're doing all the protomolecule research. And it's hidden, they're trying to find it. And she can't find it. She thought it'd be easy because that ship would send a message to the other one, but they're bouncing around drones or whatever, and space is large. You can take that from me. So she can't find it. He's like, why don't you try and ask your OPA friends to do something? Something like that, and then she's like, I can't do it myself. Devleo wants to keep it in-house. Miller starts laughing, and Naomi says, I've never seen you laugh before. And Miller goes, I was thinking something a partner of mine used to say. He says, leaving a case before you've pulled them, it's like taking half a shit. And he starts thinking about Havelock and goes, Jesus may have something. So it's quite a good Havelock quote there. It's like having half a shit, which is quite a good line. So then he meets Havelock in an online chat room. He goes onto the forums, ready to invent some new slurs and talk about types of dudes. And he finds him on the server, and he's obviously Havelock was in Ganymede, and he's like far out in the solar system because of the time delay. They have to just trade voice notes rather than have a proper conversation. So Miller finds a bar and drinks some bourbon instead. And the bar is still looking out on the Nauvoo, which looks different but still large. And he's talking about generations would live and die on it, and if they were mind-bendingly lucky enough to find a planet worth living on at the end of their journey, the people who came out of there would never have known Earth or Mars or the Belt. There'd be aliens already. And he thinks the only aliens we've met are a weapon. It's like there was life out there, and they had proof of it now, and that proof came in the shape of a weapon. So what did that tell him? Except that maybe the Mormons deserved a little warning about what they were signing their kids up for. And Miller then laughs again. So he's laughed twice, which is he's going well so far. And he basically says that's something kind of Holden would say, rather than us. And he gets a message from Havelock. It takes a minute to just crack the encryption. And he's like, yeah, good to hear you boys. I was worried you'd gone with Shadid. Because obviously Shadid and the OPA had taken over Ceres Station. And he's like, Havelock's just glad he's not on the other side. And he says, Protogen, they're fucking hardcore. They're not cops, they're troops. They're pretty scary. And they're giving him a load of shit for even being with Belters, because they're more of like an entirely inners-run organisation. And he's like, off the record, I've heard about this thing that I haven't heard about, and I haven't heard it's called FOF Station, and it's a big research, or FOF, or TOF, it's THOTH, FOF Station, and it's science crew, not many people or scientists, loads of automated defences. And then he gives him the coordinates and says let's not speak for a very long time, so he's nice and safe. And Miller sends him some money, says cheers for that, and then the sad truth was that Havelock was probably the last real partner he had had. The only one who'd looked at him as an equal, as the kind of detective Miller had imagined himself to be. He had the bone-deep feeling he wasn't ever going to see Havelock again, and he gets kind of sad. Then he rings up Holden and is like, I need to talk to your boy Fred. Now I've got the deets, I've got the location. And he's like, if I gave the information of how I got it, a good man would die. Do you see how that works? So he's gloating over Holden still. And he starts speaking to Fred Johnson, starts speaking to them, and Miller's kind of remarking he knows a lot of inners who are on the other side of a war. So he's got Holden, Fred, and Alex. That's what Alex and Amos, I suppose, as well. And then Naomi not getting involved with the OPA side. And he said they were good people. You know, there were people who thought it was a good idea to kill people who looked directed differently against people who didn't. So he says the fight at the moment, rather than inners versus outs, is people who like killing people because they look different. And then Miller kind of goes, maybe I'm not the best arbiter of this kind of morals. Given half the chance to put the scientists from the Protogen pitch, the board of directors, and whoever this Dresden piece of shit into an airlock, Miller knew he'd agonise about it for half a second after he blew them all out. Didn't put him on the side of angels. So then he meets Fred. He's called Fred the Earther OPA, is all he describes him as. He says he looks like an architect, not some battle wizard or whatever. He says, you can convince me you've got the stuff to take out that station, I'll give you the coordinates. Fred's like, I don't want to make my details public. And Miller's like, OPA, they're no disrespect, but they're a piece of shit. They're not organised, they're all amateurs, anyone with a radio can be OPA. And if I give you the coordinates and you don't have the stuff to take it, a load of people are going to die for nothing. And I'm not willing to do that. And while he's saying this, Fred looks a bit confused, and Naomi and Holden are staring behind. He says, if I'm going to him, Miller kind of goes on for a bit, says, if I'm going to help you, I need to know you can handle it. And then Naomi goes, do you know who Fred is? Miller goes, the Tycho mouthpiece for the OPA. He's Fred Johnson, Holden said. Colonel Frederick Lucius Johnson. Miller blinked. The butcher of Anderson Station, he said. The same, Fred said. Then goes, yeah, I've got a cargo load of warriors coming in, a state-of-the-art Martian torpedo bomber, which is the Rocinante. And Miller says, I feel like a flaming idiot. I can't believe it was that Fred Johnson. To which Fred says, it will pass. And then Miller's like, the only other thing I want to ask is I want to be on the boats. I want to be the guy on attacking rather than in the Rocinante or anything. And they chat for more about the plans, and he's like, that's happy days. And Holden on the way out goes, I really thought you knew, because obviously he kind of let his boy hang. And then 8 days later, so they've chilled out on Tycho Station for a bit, they get a message saying that the OPA soldiers have arrived. They're going to get ready for the attack, and Miller starts packing up his bags. And he kind of gets a bit emotional, realising he's leaving the Rocinante for what may be the last time. He says, in over his head and only half aware of the fact, but Miller could think of more than one person who fit that bill. He was going to miss Alex's old affected drawl and Amos's casual obscenity. He's going to wonder if and how Naomi ever worked things out with the captain. Because he realises he just like Holden, he's going to miss him. Obviously we know, if you read the later books, it's a bit different. He didn't know what would come next. And he's got a small bag, all his clothes fit in there, and as he's leaving he bumps into Holden in the galley, and he says, yep, well, here we go. Yep, Holden said, it's been a hell of a ride, Miller said. Can't say it's all been pleasant. And then Holden kind of goes, so assuming we all actually live through this, where shall we meet up? Miller turned. I don't understand, he said. And Holden goes, chats for a bit, says, after we get this thing done, I want the whole crew together, just in case we need to get out in a hurry. Something painful happened under Miller's sternum, not a sharp pain, just a sudden ache. His throat felt thick, he coughed to clear it. As soon as we get the place secure, I'll get in touch, Miller said. Okay, but don't take too long. If Fourth Station has a whorehouse left standing, I'm going to need help prying Amos out of it. Miller opened his mouth, closed it, and tried again. Aye, Captain, he said, forcing a lightness into his voice. Be careful, Holden said. Miller left, pausing in the passageway between ship and station until he was sure he'd stopped weeping, and then making his way to the cargo ship and the assault. And the chapter ends. So it's a nice one there, bit short, quite tight, 4 little sections. Miller can do some detective work and he can reach out to his boys, but more importantly, he actually starts kind of bonding with the gang a bit. He laughs, that's always fun, that's a human thing to do. And he also realises how much he appreciates Holden hanging out with them, and a bit emotional on the way out, which is always cute to see from our little spurgy boy. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I hope you have a lovely week.